Live from PressCorps World Headquarters, I'm Everett Way. It is currently day 248 in the 71st conflict of the war. Total soldier enlistments have exceeded 206,000 across both factions combined, with a reported casualty count reaching 1,625,000. For those that have been following, the highest casualty count for any conflict in the Siva Valley War has been Conflict 19 with 1,723,000 with some change. This war is shaping up to be possibly our deadliest war yet, with less than 100,000 casualties before that record is broken. Soldiers on both sides of the field have been reporting heavy artillery as well as the medium and light assault tanks from both sides, the new mass-produced tank from the Colonial side as well as the notorious Silverhand from the Warden side of the field. This war is still raging on and does not appear to be closing any time soon. For the weather, we have two weather advisories going on, more specifically watches. We have a winter weather watch in the Viper Pit region in Colonial. Light snow has begun falling. Conditions are not harmful to the body at this time. This storm has been going on, however, for quite some time. Vehicles are not at risk of freezing. Rivers and shorelines have not been frozen over. Shelter and campfires are not necessary at this time. There is a chance for the snowstorm to get worse, subside completely, or continue on its very light pattern that it is now. Again, a winter weather watch has been advised for the Colonial sub-region within Viper Pit and the surrounding areas. Similarly, there is a severe storm watch in the Shackled Chasm down in Viper Pit. Not Viper Pit, Silk Farms in Shackled Chasm. There's a chance for the rainstorm to get worse or go away completely, we're not sure. It is light rain that has begun falling in that area. Watchtower coverage is not impacted, and dirt areas are still dirt. They have not turned into the muddy conditions that we have seen in previous storms earlier in the conflict. Stay tuned to PressCorps for more weather information in the future. For frontline updates, in Tempest Island last we reported there was fighting in Lost Ark. The fighting there has since subsided. The Colonials still hold that territory. Most of the fighting has moved back over to the unnamed island that is in between Alchemio Estate and the Rush. Wardens putting light pressure upon the bridge northwest of the Rush there, just enough to keep the Colonials' attention. At any moment when the Colonials decide to look away, the Wardens can move in and start destroying territory in the heart of Tempest Island. Not a large amount of fighting happening in that region so far. More to come in the future. In Endless Shore, we don't have much fighting going on. However, there are two territories that the Wardens have held that recently have been demolitioned. That is the territories of Woodbind and Tuatha Watchpost. All we know of this is that those town halls in the area have been destroyed. We do not have reports on who is responsible for their destruction, whether it is a regiment or if it is lone actors on the Colonial side. In Allad's Bite at Skirvyshire, that fight continues to rage, with Wardens pushing down from the Iron Junction area into Skirvyshire. It is a protracted siege of that town. The fight seems to be occurring around the northern safehouse of Skirvyshire. No territory or hard structures have been lost beyond the garrison houses in the area. Wardens are fielding many armored tanks and are looking to push in for the kill alongside the fight in Drowned Vale, which we will cut to now. Last we reported with Mari Sharp in the Bats was that the Wardens were pushing across the river into the Bats itself onto the island that the Colonials hold as their logistics town. The update since that is that the Colonials have taken the bridge, but not the landmass on the far side. The Wardens have set up shop, as it were, on the south side of Singing Serpents, the north side of that Turtle Rock river that runs through that area. Colonials are still holding as hard as they can. The Wardens are looking to gain any other edge that they possibly can, possibly pushing into either Bootnap or Loggerhead. At this time, it's unknown. The Wardens looking to move into the next phase of their offensive into the Baths. That fight is still not over, and we may come back to a live reporting from that front in the future. As it stands at the moment, the fight is still currently at the bridge. It is either faction. This is not resolved by any means or stretch of imagination. We'll definitely see more updates in the future. In the Deadlands, fighting is still raging north of abandoned Warden, the Plaza and Pommel Annex. We have seen many colonial pushes from Pommel Annex into Callahan's Boot. This fighting seems to be occurring in between Iron's End and Abandoned Ward instead. Wardens are moving in with their own vehicles into the urban area of the plaza, with artillery, it seems, being stationed in Abandoned Ward shooting back, though the urban environment makes that rather difficult for both sides to really secure a foothold. We have heard reports of so much activity, artillery specifically, artillery activity in that area, that buildings have been permanently destroyed, unable to be rebuilt. This was before the heavy artillery was unlocked for both factions. We heard rumors of this possibility happening. It was confirmed sometime late yesterday that buildings have been permanently destroyed in Abandoned Ward. This makes it difficult to defend no matter what faction holds that territory. We're going to skip Lockmore for now. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to focus on Lockmore for now, as Fearmore is still the focal point. Wardens pushing in from the northeast and the southwest directions. Wardens still holding Westmarch on that east side, and Tomb of the First and Market Road on the west side. The major Warden push is coming into Fearmore from Market Road. They have crossed the river and are now on the Fearmore land mass. It seems that there is possibly some defenses being built by the Wardens to secure that foothold, but there are many, many vehicles being reported from the Colonials on the Fearmore side. Any details we don't quite know just yet, but we do know that there are Wardens pushing in from many directions. It is not just from that southwest side. There are some Wardens trying to make their way in on the northeast, give pressure where they can, and even swinging as far south as to come up from the Fallen Fields on the south side of Fearmore. It is a tough defense for the Colonials. We will see and come back how long they hold there. In the area of Pharaonic Coast, there is light skirmishing happening south of Maka's Keening as Colonials are trying to counterattack. It is one of the very few offensive measures that the Colonials have at this time. It is light skirmishing. There is not major activity, no regiments reporting in that area either. We will come back to see if that offensive makes any headway, but by and large, the overall feeling of this weekend in the war has been a defense of the Colonials. And on the subject of a staunch defense by Colonials, we will now turn to our Colonial correspondent here, Moth B Mann, who is reporting to us from Westgate, the Gallows specifically. We've talked about the Gallows in the past, how it's gone back and forth with Wardens fighting uphill into Warden defenses, and we're hearing reports that the Gallows is now Colonial owned. So we want to hear details from the front line. Moth, are you there? Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here, Everett. How you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. It is a very eventful weekend for this war. And overall, we're hearing the overall vibe that we get is Colonials on the defensive on every front as the Wardens are moving in and taking territory where they can. How does that vibe stand up against what's happening in the Gallows?
Well, from where I'm standing here in the Gallows, the town is completely decimated. A very long and pitched battle was just fought here and was concluded with a Colonial victory in the town. As you know, For the past 2 weeks, the Wardens have been attempting to outflank the Colonial positions here, first by invading the small port town of Wyattwick and getting a foothold there before being pushed back into the ocean. After that, the Wardens attempted a second landing at Handsome Hideaway, where they are currently still embedded in at Handsome Hideaway. With that being said, the Warden military decided to push from Sanctuary into the Gallows and subsequently captured it, resulting in the long pitched battle, the results of which are shell craters, destroyed houses, and a complete absence of natural growth in the region. I am currently standing here next to Lieutenant Colonel Prehinto, and he has been here since I arrived. We've been chatting up a little bit here and there, and I wanted to know, Colonel Prehinto, what your thoughts were on the battle.
Battle was hard fought. We were at first very much pushed back. We were awaiting reinforcements, resupply. We had Wardens, some reports trying to cut off logistics, but it was very small and light. Very few of them were able to actually do anything.
Hey, if you guys want to ride to the other side of the river,
but we were able to push the Wardens back with some new volunteers. We've had a lot of new regiments appear, a lot of new forces for the Colonial Army, and we've been able to push the Wardens back across to the bridge currently. And as for the state of the war, especially in this region, we will and continue to hold our fortress of Westgate. This is our homeland. We will not let this fall, and this is to be expected. We are used to this kind of push from the Wardens. This is their status quo. This is their strategy. We will outlast them. We are stronger than them. We are more powerful than them, and we will drive them back.
Some very strong words there from Lieutenant Colonel Prehinto. Lieutenant Colonel, do you happen to feel that you are reaching a corner that you have turned with the Colonials here? Do you believe that you can?
Oh, I think this is a corner to be turned. We now have our new technology unlocked and are mass producing our new main battle tank, and we are getting ready to turn this corner. I think we can't talk any specifics, obviously, but we are pushing. We are going to be ready, and the Wardens will not have the resources and power to outlast what we have coming for them.
I see. Well, thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me about the situation here. We're going to go ahead and take a small walk through the town here. On the way up to the bridge towards Sanctuary, where the battle is now being fought, I'm walking past a couple of destroyed buildings, and as we reach the hill, heading towards the bridge, off to my left, there is a church currently being rebuilt by Colonial engineers in anticipation for another heavy push from the Wardens. Coming along down the road, there appears to be one of the mass-produced tanks currently mentioned by Lieutenant Colonel Prehinto.
Go push, guys, go push.
Situating itself.
Go to the bridge, go to the bridge.
Up at the bridge here, and as I come up to this escarpment here, I can look across. And the bridge itself is probably about 40 to 50 meters in length, being heavily defended by Wardens, as the Colonials have pushed across to the other side, and they are now attacking the entrenchments there.
Sorry, I wouldn't be able to help.
But this has been, yeah, there's a little bit of combat going on here. There's also a little bit of engineering work, destroying old positions and rebuilding them.
That's what I was going to ask. We have, you have not crossed the river yet from what you were describing, but we still hear explosions. So long as you're safe, it sounds like it is planned demolition on your side. Possibly destroying some...
on the eastern side of the river, it is pretty much just controlled demolition and reconstruction of defensive positions. Flipping the position of defenses from Warden to Colonial, reorienting them in a westerly direction. As I stand on this hilltop, I can look off to my left and I can see soldiers moving up the road towards the edge of the bridge as they are firing mortars onto the Warden positions across the river. This has pretty much been the story of the Gallows and Sanctuary ever since the start of the war. Ever since the Wardens captured Sanctuary about, 2 months ago, they have been pretty much engaged in a continuous back and forth in this region. and it seems to only continue. From a
And it's
personal standpoint, it appears that the Colonials are going to continue to dig in here and wait for a moment and an opportunity to strike.
I see, and no doubt it is compounded by some of the side objectives and offensives that the Wardens have attempted, and in one case got thwarted, in another case is still succeeding. You mentioned earlier how the Wardens landed. You mentioned earlier how Wyattwick was the source of a landing site by the Wardens. The Colonials now own that; they've been pushed out, but Handsome Hideaway is a waterlocked island out there that is still being held by Wardens. Is that correct?
That is correct. At least according to the intelligence that I'm receiving here on the map, at least 1/3 of Handsome Hideaway is still under control by the Warden military. The observation tower clearly is giving them an advantage in terms of recording troop movements along the shorelines, as well as that shipyard, which can no doubt create havoc for any sort of water logistics that tend to come this way. Or in any other scenario, gunboats could be produced there under cover of darkness, to which the Wardens could then use to shell coastline positions, which would inflict heavy damage on Colonial positions.
It seems that with the bridge now owned by Colonials, as it were, secured there, Handsome Hideaway should be one of their higher priorities, given how threatening it can be with gunboats and entire invasion fleet possibly hiding there that the Colonials don't know about. Have you seen any attempt for the Colonials to push them out of that island?
For the moment, it appears that, despite the strong words of Prehinto, Lieutenant Colonel Prehinto, it appears that the Colonials are pretty content about holding the bridge, and even though they are advancing across it every now and again to engage the Warden positions at the trench line in Sanctuary, it doesn't appear that they have enough momentum to really do anything besides keep them engaged here. But then again, the territory around that sector really makes it difficult for any sort of offensive or defensive movement to circumvent that position. So this is a must-take position for the Colonials, and it's a must-defend position for the Wardens, especially if they want to maintain their hold on Fisherman's Row, particularly Hangman's Court or Satyr Stone. Those two positions would give the Colonials a foothold should they breach Sanctuary, as well as opening up a path to Victa.
Indeed, and we've seen a little bit of Colonial activity in Hangman's Court since they lost that region in the early days of the war. Now we're seeing Sanctuary being held pretty easily by the sounds of it, with Colonials pushing across the bridge, but not quite having enough momentum to rebuild the bridge and move across, at least just yet. It's hard to tell exactly where the future of this fight will go if Colonials will move out of Sanctuary. How defended is Sanctuary itself? There must be, you mentioned trenches on the western side of that bridge there. What else do we see that's in the way?
Well, I can see an elaborate trench system, a lot of anti-tank cannons, as well as artillery positions within the trench system and outside of it. There's a very large artillery gun just outside of the trench system at the foot of the bridge, rather, on the Warden side. Right now, a number of Colonials are pushing across the river, attempting to take the trench line, getting mowed down by machine gun fire. From where I'm standing, it's an absolute bloodbath. I
see, and from what you're saying, it sounds like pretty heavy weaponry with the Warden defensive line there. Colonials pushing in with just infantry?
That's correct. It's just infantry, and there were about 50 guys there, and now there's about a dozen left, and they've fallen back.
Oh, and now it sounds like heavy artillery is entering the fight, which has been the flavor of the past several days in all of the defensive and offensive efforts by both sides. Is there anything else from that front? Because it sounds like with infantry pushing against heavy artillery, heavy weaponry on the Warden side, do you see the Colonials making any headway into Sanctuary with what they have currently?
I'll be frank, not at any time soon. I don't see that happening. The best course of action for them, I suppose, is just to hold their position. Just to keep
Understood.
those Wardens engaged at that bridge, and I think that that'll be the best thing for them, at least until they can get more naval support. I think would be the best hope for them.
Understood. And it is tough to keep any naval support with the Wardens holding handsome hideaway as they do. Strategically, it is unorthodox. We don't see too many large bases being set up in handsome hideaway by either faction. But with the Wardens taking that island, it certainly poses a rather large threat for the Colonials. We'll have to see how the Colonials adapt to this, and if the Wardens decide to respond, possibly pulling soldiers from other areas to push back into the gallows. So to see, is there anything else for us from the gallows, from the front line?
No, I believe that's it, Everett.
Okay. This has been that's Moth Man at the gallows, Moth B Mann, excuse me, for your full name. Thank you very much for your excellent reporting today.
Of course, anytime.
We have some updates from other areas in the war.
Sorry.
Moving back to the east, if you will, mentally in the town of Fearmore, Wardens are continuing to push across the fields into Fearmore. They have broken through a line of defense. There are many more in the way before the town is officially Warden. The fight is still raging. As I said, the flavor of the day for the Colonial faction has been to survive, while the Wardens have been on a heavy, heavy offensive. Even further east in the Drowned Vale, the fight is still raging there. All eyes have been on the Baths, between the Baths and Fearmore, but Baths is definitely the larger fight there. The 82nd Dread Corps Legion has been in charge, or taken responsibility for the offensive in the Drowned Vale. And actually, on the subject of the 82nd Dread Corps Legion, we do have a statement from them. This was telegraphed into us just minutes ago, and we're going to read this live on air. This is, from what we understand, directed at the Colonials holding at the Baths. This is a statement from Commissar Avidus. Avidus? Apologize if I mispronounce that. I believe it's Avidus. Their statement reads as this, quote, "The 82nd Dread Corps would like to offer the heretic filth in inhabiting the Baths to surrender their arms, and they may be granted a swift death in Callahan's grace." Unquote. Very harsh words from the 82nd Dread Corps, known for how ruthless they could be, and generally don't hold many prisoners on their own. We have interviewed the 82nd many times. I believe the Colonials have referred to them in the past as unsettling in some cases. There is a further statement that, while that statement is directed towards the members of the Bath, this statement is simply out to the open from the 82nd Dread Corps Legion. Quote, "Today, brothers and sisters under Callahan, we have showed this heretical filth that we will not stand for their presence, and we will pay any cost to clean their corruption from the Vale. To the heretics still within the city of Baths, I say, lay down your arms, and upon my honor ye shall be granted a swift death under Callahan's grace." Unquote. That seems to be the full statement they sent 2 telegrams, the second statement being a little more full in that way. And it definitely seems like the 82nd has every intention of following up on their threat here. We'll have to reach out to some of the Colonial regiments holding out in the Baths to see what their response to this statement by the 82nd will be. For now, we're going to cut back to a music break. We will have more live reporting very soon. We actually have reporters reaching into other regions from fights we have not heard from just yet. So don't tune away. There is a lot of coverage coming for this very, very eventful weekend. This has been Everett Way live at PressCorps World Headquarters. We'll cut now to the music. Thank you for listening. Don't go anywhere.